Guys, we are at the Royal Range here in Nashville, Tennessee. Today we're going to be doing a blade fighting seminar, and we're going to be catching some video for you guys on Sinawali, which is a Filipino martial arts drill to help you develop and ingrain some timing and placement into your hands. All right, guys, today we're going to be looking at some fundamental Filipino Kali drills. If you're familiar with some of the material we've been putting out, we commonly talk about the combat blueprint. On the combat blueprint, there are multiple primal environments that we want to make sure we have good information in. One of those environments is the edged or blunt weaponry environment, and that is the title that we would be plugging this in as far as the material today. One of the reasons we want to have these drills in our training is so that we can understand the dynamic flow of weaponry. What I mean by that is we can start to train our optics, train our eyes to see what we need in relation to how weaponry flows and how it is used from a potential threat. This is important because if we have the ability to recognize those optics, we can respond to them sooner, placing us ahead of time in relation to the threat. Another area that you will get tremendous benefit out of these drills from is position and timing. When I talk about positioning and timing, I'm referring basically or fundamentally to two different things. The positioning of your body in relation to, say, a threat in a combat situation. You can also say the position of your hands. Sometimes when you're doing a drill or you're fighting, you may get overly focused on what one hand is doing, and this can commonly happen when you're training with weapons. When you do that, you may not necessarily pay attention to what the other hand is doing or where it is. So it may not be in the proper position. Being out of position can sometimes place you in a situation that you pay for, even with just a wild, lucky strike or punch from your opponent. So one of the things this drill will do is start to train your hands how to be in proper position as you're moving through those dynamic flow of, for instance, cutting angles with weaponry. One other element that is related to positioning is being able to use both hands simultaneously. Now, sometimes that's easier done when they are both tracing the same dynamic lines. But if one hand is doing something that is totally different from the other hand, sometimes that takes training. And this could be related back to what we were discussing with position. You may be attacking on one line high while you're training your hand to either block or attack, or just be in a proper position to do something on a low line. So that's one of the reasons for training these drills, is that it will start to ingrain this type of information and behavior into your extremities, into your hands. That is also related to positioning that we talked about earlier. If you don't train these drills, those hands may not necessarily be trained to be in the proper position at the correct time. One other area that you will benefit from these types of drills is just development of motor skills and your hand-eye coordination. Now, a lot of times drilling doesn't look like fighting, and that is okay. It doesn't have to. Now, of course, you can create drills that will look visually more related to whatever type of fighting you're doing. But sometimes drills are designed just to ingrain information into the nervous system. And once you've gone through a drill long enough to do that, you may not necessarily need them anymore. You need the ability to alter those drills to fit what you need. It has been common in a lot of my friends in the martial arts, they will learn a drill when they enter into the system, and then 10, 15 years later, they're still doing the same drill. I've actually had some conversations with friends of mine about why are we still doing this drill? We don't know what it is ingraining in the body. If you are doing a drill, you should know what it is correcting in your body, in your nervous system. And I think, in my opinion, you should also gain the ability to mold and change those drills into what you need. Drilling should be an art unto itself, not just a mindless sequence that you follow continually. This first drill is a Sinawali drill from Filipino Kali. It's commonly called the 6-count. So you could start this drill in an open position or a closed position. When I teach it generally in the beginning, I'll show it from a closed position. Closed or an open position. So for this sequence, you can actually start with either side In the beginning, generally we will start with the top hand. We'll come out on a diagonal blow, number 1. When that comes out, I'm going to return it to the opposite shoulder. 1. 1. After that, the bottom hand can come out and hit on the 2. So 1, 2. And then this hand is going to come back up to the shoulder as this one comes back out. So I have a number 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. If I tuck that stick in on that side, I'm going to repeat the same 3-count sequence on this side of the body. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You'll see that this first strike is coming out as a tip-up strike. 2, the tip is down, and I'm switching. Of course, this can change, but this is just the basic flow. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Commonly, when you do this drill, the big thing in the beginning is just to get the flow going and to develop your timing between the hands. Once you start to feel comfortable with that, you do want to pay attention to the cutting lines of the weapons. Obviously, we're using Filipino Kali sticks today, but we could also demonstrate this with bladed weaponry. On the number 2, as this returns, it's common just to let the tip sink down like this. It is a low-line blow. But I want to have intention in that cut. And one of the things I like to imagine when I'm doing the drill is that I have a large X in front of me. Sometimes in the academy, we'll even put tape on the wall as a visual reference for the student, so that when I'm cutting, I can reference that line with the angle of the weapon system. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And I want to be doing that bottom cut and the top cut with intent. And of course, after a certain amount of time, you'll develop the ability just to play the drill. That's standard 6-count. Once you have this basic flow, there are many different combinations of this. We'll refer to as Heaven 6, Standard 6, which is what we just showed, and Earth 6. What separates those is really your striking lines. Heaven 6, all of those 6 strikes are striking high on the high line. The motion that you're doing with the arms stays the same. So they all become a high line strike. Earth 6 is the opposite of that. All of my strikes will be downward. This drill can also be done with a partner. I'm very fortunate today to have C.J. Brian Lewis here with me to help me demonstrate these drills. Brian has been in the martial arts for how long?
44 years.
44 years. Okay, so the first one we're going to take a look at is the Standard 6. That is the flow drill that had the high and low strikes. So we're both coming out and making contact with that same line, and then we'll retract just like we did when we were doing it in an open space. We're just making contact with the weapon. So we have a tip up, tip down, tip up, tip down. Now your goal is with your partner to get to the point where you can play this drill. It's almost mindless. In other words, like we said earlier, it starts to get ingrained into your nervous system to the point where you don't have to think about what you're doing. We did 3 variations. This would be Standard 6. The next one we did was the Heaven 6. Same flow, all the strikes are tip up. And the next variation is the Earth 6. All tips or all strikes are down. Once you have those basics, combine them together. You start with a Heaven, all tips are up. Then start to flow into Standard 6. So you have a high line hit and a low line hit. And of course you can start to plug in the low line attacks, which is the Earth 6. All tips are down. And after a while, you'll be able to flow in and out of all three of those basic flows. Okay, once you have the upper body playing, you want to start plugging in different types of footwork. And in Filipino martial arts, we generally will base a lot of our fundamental footwork on triangular placement of the feet. For me, it's either going to be like what's commonly referred to as a male triangle or a female triangle. So if I'm standing here and you imagine that I am standing on the tip of a triangle and I were to step back to one side of the base of the triangle, and then I repeat that on the other side, you can start to see the male triangle shape. It is common that you can also use sticks just to get a visual of the line you're stepping on. If we were to reverse that, the female triangle. So those are your two basic triangle steps that you can play. Now for me, I like to work different placements of weight in different areas on the triangle. So if we look at the male triangle, and I'm keeping most of my body weight at the tip of the triangle and I'm stepping back. So in other words, I'm not shifting my weight back here. And this is done sometimes in order to prepare the feet in order to explosively change directions if we're stick fighting or knife fighting. But my weight is staying forward. So based on that, the variation may be I'll put my weight back on the baseline. So I'll step to the tip and draw back. You can also apply this to stepping on the female triangle. Earlier, I am taking a step and shifting my weight to the baseline. So the weight is coming out of the back foot. Commonly, I can just keep my weight in the back and step the foot up. I'm not overly committing weight, and I can combine these. Sometimes I'll step without weight, sometimes I'll step with weight. I can also start to condition the foot to step forward, which could later turn into another step, some sort of kicking attack. We're basically training to transfer between single weight and double weight alignment. What I mean by that is, if you look at the human machine, basically how it's designed, it's capable of two things: double weighted, or I can put weight in a single foot. Once we have an understanding of these footwork, like we said earlier, now we can start to combine what we're doing with our feet with our upper body. So you could pick your favorite 6-count, maybe the standard 6, and I can start to put it together with that basic footwork. We're front weighted now. You can also mix it in with that female triangle or a combination of both. This is nice because it starts to train your hands and your feet to operate simultaneously. Obviously, a lot of these skills that come from this type of training can carry over into your kickboxing, your sparring, your knife fighting, your stick fighting. And that's one of the reasons you'll see these used a lot in Filipino martial arts. For us, one of the exercises we like to mix into this is a sidestepping 2-count. And we'll use this commonly. Earlier we did stepping on the female and the male triangle, but we really weren't transferring across the baseline of the triangle. So just to look at the striking motion, we're still coming from a closed position. When we do this, we're starting with the bottom one and closing with the top. And again, on this side, if I were to repeat, so it becomes just a 2-count. This can be plugged in to 6 at any time. So you may be playing a 3-count or 6-count, 3 counts on either side. And anytime you hit that chamber position, you have the ability to do a power blow with that 2-count. So we were on the triangle. We'll use the male triangle. We're stepping with weight on the tip, sliding to the baseline, sliding to the baseline. If my weight is here and my foot is ready, I now have the ability to transfer across the baseline. So we're doing that 6-count on the middle triangle, and this time we're transferring weight to the baseline. And as we transfer weight, we're prepping the foot. We're not leaving it, we're bringing it with. And one of the reasons for this is to have the ability to use it to change directions. And since we're going across the baseline, we're taking a 90-degree angle. So if I'm doing the 6, stepping from the tip, loading the foot on the baseline, at any point I can travel across that baseline like that. Now you can continue to do the 6-count, but one of the things we'll start to do is change from 3 counts to 2s, because it'll obviously start to ingrain different timing methods into your training. Stepping with the 6, stepping with the 2-count. So that is starting to do a side step across the baseline with the 2-count, which is a power blow. So in this video, we've gone through some of the fundamental 6-count drills. We've plugged it in on top of some of the 2 basic triangular footwork. And we also got to plug in the 2-count, which is a power blow. In the beginning, I generally plug that one in going across the baseline. Now, a lot of this material, obviously, you may not get right away. But we wanted to give you enough information so that you can come back and reference the video and start to build your training. So you may just start off with one of the basic hand sets. Train that for a little while. Get good doing it with your partner, and then start to add in the feet. And then you could also start adding in breaking the timing on the blows. And it's one of the things we did between the 3-count and the 2-count, as learning to start to change timing of the hands while you're training placement of the hands. And the beautiful thing about this is we're doing it with stick work. This can be applied to many different weapon systems, which is one of the reasons why the Filipino martial arts uses this to train placement of the hands and start to ingrain these types of motion into your system. All right, today we're looking at some of the fundamental drills from Filipino Kali, and they're double stick drills in order to train timing and placement of the hands. For us, we follow a principle we call the combat blueprint. And the combat blueprint ensures that we become aware of our gaps in knowledge. This information for us would be underneath the edged and blunt weaponry column. If you'd like to get more information underneath that column, you can find some additional videos right up here. If you like the content you're seeing on the videos, please give us a comment on what you'd like to see in the future. Also give us a like and subscribe so that when we release information in the future, you'll be one of the